I think one of the first lines in the play, which we have written, is something along the lines of, although the day that we met was a sad day, this is not a play about death. So it's not a play about 12 characters who are dealing with a life-threatening disease, etc, etc, etc. It's about 12 very different people. Yes, there are aspects of that are part of it, but you know, these are 12 very people. They're not all gay. They come from very different walks of life, but they are all connected by this one event, and that one event changes their lives and their outlook on life and their outlook on people forever. And I think that that's true. That can happen. People can come into your life and they can change the way you think and perceive others. And if there's anything we want people to take away from the play, I think it's probably that. And not to put people in boxes, because that's one of the key messages as well.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Hart Talks. Well, as you can see, I am not in my usual place at the moment. Where are we? And I have a guest. I don't really have a guest because I'm in your house. So really I'm your guest.
I have a guest. This strange man turned up and
do you want to,
can I shoot a video?
They all know who I am, so do you want to tell them who you are?
Yeah, so, well, first of all, I'm a friend of Stephen's, first and foremost. Relatively new friend of Stephen's. When did we meet? October last year? Was it? November?
Seems like longer. Is that a bad thing?
It can't be longer. It can't be longer because you you didn't see Borderlands.
And it was just after
Borderlands. We didn't see my last play. Terrible. And Borderlands was on in October. So I think we met towards the end of October because we met pretty soon afterwards. Because that was when I read or saw your blog. Thanks to one of the cast in Borderlands, Inca Williams. Yeah, so my name's, tell people my name. My name's Lance Steen Anthony Neilson. That's my adopted and birth names combined into one big beef burger sandwich. And I'm predominantly a freelance writer, director, consider myself a bit of an activist, but mainly what I do is I write a lot. Books, plays and films for screenplays.
So obviously you have heard me talk about the play that I am co-writing, and this is the man who is doing that with me. We have got a working title, and it's at the moment it's called Who We Are. Why this play? Why was it important to you?
I'm interested in human stories that reflect the society that we live in or the society that we've lived in the past, and I'm interested in themes that explore cultural identity in general, family, where we're from, how our past and our upbringing affects who we are, who we become, and clash of culture, and these subjects all interest me. My closest cousin, a guy called Mikael Neilson, he passed away of HIV at the age of, I want to say 26. I might be out by a year or two on that. It might have been younger. On my birthday in 1991. So Mikael's death was quite a significant thing for our family, and that also led to me kind of being involved with further down the road with charities and other things. But I did want to do a story, a big story, that was about a group of, I want to use this word carefully because it can be insulting, but about a group of fairly dysfunctional characters that are against the backdrop of the evolving and changing LGBT world of London. And I have a lot of friends who inherit that world, so I've seen quite a bit of it over the time myself. I don't want to be the bloke in the room that says I've got a lot of gay friends, but I have got a lot of gay friends, and you know, I have quite a diverse background myself, born in one culture, brought up in another, adopted and so on. The idea of telling a story over a big period of time, which is something I've done in a play before, really appealed to me, but I'd never done something that kind of, the narrative spine of it was firmly embedded in the LGBT history of London. And when I say that, that's a big umbrella term. I'm talking about the venues that have come and gone, the support services that have come and gone, the key figures that have come and gone, the legal things that have changed,
the technology,
the way that people communicate, the way that people date, and that's something obviously that has a far wider reach than just the LGBT scene in London. So we'll be exploring themes and narratives and characters within the play that will have a wider appeal than just an LGBT audience, but it will definitely have a core audience within that kind of realm of population or whatever, for want of a better phrase.
Can you give us a basic outline of what our play is going to be about, Lance?
Who We Are tells the story of 12 very different characters who meet at the memorial for a character who's just passed away in 1995, and we follow the lives of those 12 people as they agree to meet once a year, every year, from 95 until 2015. And we also get an insight into some of their lives in between those meetings as well, and how also key events in London's LGBT history bisects and affects their lives at different times. So we see the way that they how they change over time in how they communicate, how they love, how they live their lives, medically what changes for them, all those things. It's a very interesting period of history from 95 to 2015 because so much changed for people.
I was going to describe these our 12 characters as a group of friends, but really they don't start off as a group of friends, do they really? You know, they're brought together by a tragedy. The beginning of the play, which was an idea that came fairly quickly, and I may have been one that was bubbling away before even you came on board, was that it would be about 12 people that would meet, some of whom would know each other and some of whom wouldn't, at the memorial service for a character that we don't meet at the beginning. I think we're going to certainly talk about him, and we might even see him in flashback occasionally, but we're not going to see very much of him. A character called Charlie. He's somebody who's passed away from HIV. He's died quite young. He's died in the mid-90s. I suppose kind of had embraced the ethos which a lot of people did back then, which it's better to burn out and fade away. And and a lot of people did embrace that ethos, and that they're not here. And then there were other people who embraced and eat healthy and quit smoking and don't do any drugs and whatever, and they also died, and they're also not here. And there are some people that did a bit of both and are still here. I don't think there was any clear divider between, it wasn't particularly selective on who it took and who it didn't. But so it's set over 20 years, and these characters meet at this memorial service, and that's where they all connect in the first instance, and then they reconnect. They agree to reconnect every year. What people need to understand who are watching it is watching this video is this is all a work in progress. So Stephen and I are meeting up once a week. We're having like a brainstorming session at the minute, and at the minute I suppose we're at the building block stage. We've identified who all the main characters are. There are 12 of them. We keep sort of liking them to the 12 apostles at the Last Supper. And it does kind of start with this dinner. One of the characters invites everybody else back to their house after this very sad occasion, and so we kind of get a sense of who everybody is and how they all met. The play is very much one of two halves, and the first half is 95 to 2005, and the second half is 2006 to 2015. So both sections of it take place over 10 years. And it's not definite yet, but it might even be two separate plays. But if we do it that way, that in itself presents a challenge, because you want the plays to work on their own.
so that people can see parts 1 or part 2, and just see that and see nothing else, and still have an enjoyable evening of theatre, and still have the characters work within those sections, and the stories work, and still feel like there's a beginning and an ending, although obviously there'll be some unfinished business. If you think about where technology was in how it relates to the LGBT scene around 2005, I would suggest was the moment that Tina started creeping in to the gay scene. Its use obviously exponentially increased between 2005 to 2009, 2010, and from 2010 onwards it was everywhere. I don't think we can write this kind of play without it.
Without it, no. Because we want to make it as genuine and as real as possible, don't we?
At the same time, you have a number of great things that happened around that time, like the Equality Act of 2006 came into power. The age of consent was equalised. Section 28 was repealed. And then the other thing that sort of happened in the early 2000s, and obviously peaked around 2005, would be internet dating and the use of
how that changed the whole dating
websites,
really, didn't it?
Because it wasn't all on the phones by 2006. It was still very much on the PC. So I mean, internet dating, same for straight people, or in the swinging scene, which is the equivalent of people wanting to have lots of sex on the straight scene. You know, that was all online. That all involved rushing home to sit in front of your PC and log into your chat room, and so you're going to sort of see how these things change the characters and change their lives over that period, which is quite significant. The other thing, of course, I think that there was a really big change, which again is a clear divider between our two parts, is that by the mid to early 2000s, everybody realised that the Hart, would you call it the Hart regime, the medication regimes, were not only very effective and were going to let people live long and normal lives, but I think by somewhere between 2006, 2009, there was something conducted called the Swiss study. That was extremely important, and that was the thing that proved that HIV was no longer infectious if you were undetectable for men and women, straight or gay. Our characters are kind of, for want of a better phrase, they're kind of ordinary people who just want to get on with their lives, but they're from extremely different backgrounds. We've got a transgender character in there. There's an American, actually, as well in there. There's an American who happens to be in London at the time when the events in the play unfold, and ends up staying in London for a fairly big chunk of the time.
We've got an elderly woman.
We have an elderly
Harriet,
woman, who is a sort of a fundraiser and kind of gets involved in the lives of the characters.
So there's a real mix, isn't there? You know, we've got our disco bunnies, as we call them. We've got four characters, four other guys that we call the disco bunnies. So we've got them, but we've got a real mix, you know, of other characters. I think we both felt it was important to include everybody. That, you know, it's not like trans people only appeared in the 2000s.
No,
you know, it's just the stories are being heard more now, luckily, you know. But yeah, so we definitely want to do the show in London, but we want to also. It would be great, wouldn't it, to take this over to New York? Take over.
The issues, the narrative that they go through are very similar to what similar characters would have gone through in New York. I think New York and London have a lot of parallels in terms of the types of cities they are. They're very culturally diverse. They're very racially diverse. They have a very active LGBT scene. But between the time of 95 and 2005, that scene has massively changed. I mean, we could do a prequel play between 75 and 85 and show that change, but I feel that has been done, and that would be very much a play about HIV and nothing else. 95 is an interesting time because it's a bit of a turning point where medications were, you know, they were coming out, more people had access to them, there were more types, and you know, some were working and some weren't. And people were still dying, but there were people who were surviving. So it was the beginning of a change on that narrative, and that's kind of our starting point.
Talk to us about funding, because funding is a thing that I don't know a lot about. And Lance, who has had experience in the past, so
I've got a lot of experience of having no funding, and not being paid. I specialise in that.
Of how to not get funding. But,
how to work for free.
But it's a tough. That's going to be tough, isn't it? You know, because it's
funding for shows is extremely difficult, particularly an off West End or fringe production, which is what we're looking at here. So one of the reasons for sort of doing this video, I suppose, was to make people aware of the show that was coming, and also certainly Stephen and I would welcome any suggestions within the theatrical world where we might apply for funding of for a play of this type. It's not just an LGBT play, it's bigger than that, but it's definitely also educational, and it's definitely going to have pivotal moments of history and how that impacts the characters. So I think there's probably a lot of places we could apply for funding that I wouldn't necessarily think of normally, but the people watching this might think of. So it's worth mentioning for that reason, to see if we get any pointers on where we might look. It's at a very early stage, so we can continue working on the story and the script in the meantime, because that's the most important part to get right, of course.
So when do you think we will be looking at a read-through?
A read-through in 2020 and a completed script before the end of the year that we're both happy with, I think, is the primary goal for 2020.
And it's funny, it's interesting as far as casting is going, because we are creating these characters, and it's I don't know if you feel the same, Lance. Obviously you've done this many times before, so you're a lot more experienced at it than I am, but I am starting to really feel for our characters in our show, you know, because we are creating them, and we're creating their stories, their backstories, what happens to them. So it'll be really interesting casting this, won't it? You know, because I know we're going to know that I know that we're going to really know who our characters are by the time it comes to casting, won't we?
I think so. Some of them are being written. I don't want to mention any actors' names because they might not end up playing them, but certainly there's a couple being written with people we know in mind.
People in mind.
You should care about your characters when you're writing, because it's a good sign. If you're writing dilemmas that will cause the audience conflict, and to be torn between caring about a character 1 minute and hating them the next, because we all make mistakes. That's what makes us human. Then you're doing the right thing. Writing in amazing shows. There's a great American show called The Shield, and that was one of the first shows that I ever saw where they really made every character in that show, there was something about them you absolutely loved, and then they would do something that you absolutely hated in every episode, and that was great. To me, it was just fantastic writing. There was no hero or villain in the piece. You know?
It was like Dexter. He was a serial killer, and you hated what he was doing, but at the same time, you like Dexter. I don't know. Is that a really weird one to use? Not that we like serial killers.
No,
but
my example is probably better.
yeah. Okay, everybody. Well, thank you for your interest in the show. Please, if you have any questions, pop it in the comment section below. We would love to hear what you want to know more about.
We might do an updated one of these.
We will do
an
update. Yeah, definitely.
And maybe a live Q&A one of these. Maybe in the lead up to the read through, and maybe one after it.
Definitely. This is not the end you will hear of what we're doing. The more the project grows, the more we will try and. Well, I'll definitely include it. So thank you, and thank you, Lance, for having us in your place.
Is that where we are?
That's where we are. Okay, that's where we are.
I wonder what all these board games are.
Now we've got to go and get back to work. So
we're going down the pub, aren't we?
It's time to. Shh. Now it's time to go to work. Okay. Thanks, Lance.
Thanks very much.
See you later, everybody. Bye.
Follow Stephen's blog.
Yes, yes.
Don't forget to share. Don't forget to share this video.
Yes.
Very important.
It is. Okay, bye, everybody.